to like try to explain how little I knew, I only learned about castling within the last like week.
Because there have been several of these PogChamps events, and you sort of see certain people like they can pick things up easier than others. So for example, when you were doing the puzzles, I think it was the back rank checkmates, I think it was probably like 4 or 5 days ago, like that is not something that for someone who is really new to the game they should be spotting.
Really?
Yes, really. It's not kind of natural for someone who hasn't like played or hasn't like seen these patterns before.
Feels good, man.
It should, because it's not normal. So it totally should.
When being not normal is good. Nice.
So back to this situation after black develops. So now in this game, if white were to take, the reason that you actually take with this pawn is that, let's say white grabs this pawn in the center of the board. I'm gonna play this move. Does this look like a good move or not?
Right off the bat, it just looks like a take.
Right, it looks very stupid. I just gave it my bishop for 1 pawn.
Yeah.
So okay, so now I'm gonna play this move. And what is this?
Check.
It is
not
check.
Checkmate, right?
Right. But it's a double attack.
Oh, my poor... No. Oh, my poor other knight.
Right.
Poor guy. So if I just move somewhere, you just take, right?
Right, and this is actually an even trade.
Ah, that's true. So it's just another bait.
Right, exactly. And this is actually something that you need to be very aware of, because this actually will happen a lot, which is why in this game white ignores it. White castles the king.
Ah.
So now black castles. So okay, let's rework this.
I feel like castling is like the most efficient move in every game of chess.
Yeah, generally that's why at the start you really, and this is why openings matters, because you want to be able to make your first like 5 to 6 moves and get your king out of the center immediately. So now let's assume white were to take here, and now I'm going to recapture this way again, because actually let's go back. Sorry, so let's go back here. So if we go back to this position, when I take this pawn, I'm ahead by 1 pawn, and you see how now I can't do anything in the center here because I have this pawn that's in front of my queen.
Yeah.
So now let's go back to this position, and let's say you take and I take back. When I take this pawn in the center, I'm ahead by 1 pawn. What's the difference here if I take this pawn?
Your queen does have an open file.
Right, so if we go back, okay, let's say white takes. What is the black move here? And like when I ask in a question form, yeah, exactly, and it's the same thing. Your king's in check, and you're gonna lose your knight. So, what's the difference? What can you play as white here? Right. And now, when I move the queen down, it's no longer a check.
Yeah. If anything, you can't really take. Or probably
right, so you actually would just move the knight away. Just move the knight out of the center. And if the queen captures the rook, you just capture with your king.
Yeah.
So you're just way ahead.
Got it. Castling is just OP.
Yeah, I would say like just pretty much get it like ingrained that you're gonna castle your king. Because
I was meaning to also ask, sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
I was meaning to ask if you could kind of summarize the differences between castling queenside and castling kingside. I feel like what I most often see is castling kingside, but is it kind of just whatever ends up being available to you first?
I would say at your, I mean, since you're so new to the game, assume you're castling kingside. Do not really worry about castling queenside unless like you learn an opening setup where you're going to be castling queenside. Assume you're castling kingside, because the thing with castling queenside, I'm trying to think what a good example is. What's a good example? It's not complicated. That's a good example. So let's say, for example, you play some opening. Just again, kind of don't really worry about the moves. But normally the only time you're gonna really castle to the queen side is if you get really fast development. Like you see how here the knight is out, the bishop is out, and the queen is out.
Whereas on this side, you just need a bishop and a knight out.
Right. So you need to develop more pieces to castle. Now, if you can get your queen out, your bishop, and your knight really fast, you can castle to the queen side. But I think when you're really new to the game, you should primarily focus on castling to the king side, because I would say even in the games that I play as a professional, I would still say probably, I don't know, I want to say like even for me, like 90% or more of the games, you castle on the king side.
And you don't want your queen out too soon. Got it.
So I would really, I'll think about openings and all this other stuff, later on. But I think don't really just assume you're going to castle on the king side, because queen side going to the left of the queen happens a lot less than going to the right. Okay. So really don't even worry about that. Just assume you're going to castle the king to the king side, because like castling to the king to the left of the queen, or going to left into, it's called queenside castling, by the way, because you're castling to the left of the queen, whereas you see you're going to the left of where the queen is versus going to the side that the king is already on. So that's like how we differentiate between like the queen side castle and the king side castle.
Okay. I kept hearing castling long, which as a gamer, that term sticks a little bit easier.
Okay, yeah, it's completely fine. Yeah, no, I'm giving you the very basics of why we call it queenside or kingside. But yes, if I'm playing a game, I'll say castle long. I will say that. Yeah, I will actually say castle long. And that's because actually the reason that I will say that is because if you see the notation, when you castle your king, it's like 0-0.
Oh whoa.
Yeah, and when you castle queenside, it's O-O-O.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
Oh, whoa, whoa. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So that's why, like, if I'm playing, I will say castle long, because I think of when I'm writing the moves, and it's like, okay, well, it's long, because there are 3 O's.
Oh, that's true. I was just thinking there's, like 3 pieces. Oh, sorry. Instead of 2 between.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it's because it's O-O-O-O. So, yeah. Anyway, right, okay. So to keep going, because I think actually the thing is like learn, you'll have to learn openings, but like when you learn these fundamentals, it's really, really important, because then your mind, it starts to put 2 and 2 together, where you see something and you start thinking about it during the game. And I think that's more important than like pure calculation. Like, you want to see if any of your pieces are under attack, but getting sort of to the next level beyond just a very basic, making sure all your forces are not under attack, is remembering these sorts of pins or these outpost ideas, because that's how you're going to beat your opponents. You're going to win the majority of your games like that.
I think that's why I found puzzles to be so helpful. It's almost like I'm remembering a certain image or position, figuring out like the 3 steps, because otherwise it's very hard to like look at a full board and imagine it like 3 potential steps ahead.
Right. So now this is where you're going to see, like, it's really important what I was showing with the pawns being in front of each other, because in this game you're going to see a theme. So I want to see if you can put the 2 and 2 together to understand. So all right, back to this game. This next move is kind of a weird move. It looks very strange also. Don't worry too much about this. But it looks like you gave up a knight for free, right? So if black takes the knight, you're behind by a knight for a pawn. But you have a good move here to win back your material. That you've just given up 1 knight. So how do you win back a knight, or maybe a bishop, or even up the material balance again?
Thonk.
So remember now that you've gotten your pieces out, you've developed your knight, your bishop, and your king, what isn't developed? What haven't you brought into the game here?
All of these.
Right. So, well, when I say developed, like when you've castled, in a sense, I know it's like it's very weird,
kind of been developed,
but it kind of has been. Yeah.
True. So mainly these. But mainly these, really.
Well, in order to bring this in the game, not all the time, but again, I would say since you're so new, think about it like you have to bring this bishop so you can bring the rook to one of these center squares. So how would you develop this bishop?
It's just awkward because he's currently blocked. Oh, this is. Oh, sorry. This is a double attack.
So this is a double attack, but this is like the traditional fork. So this is the difference between like the double attack and the fork is that generally.
Sorry, traditional fork because I will probably take one or the other.
Right. So a fork means when you attack like a bishop and a knight. Now another example of fork. Let me just make some random moves. Is like you can do this, and this is also a fork with the pawn because you're attacking the bishop and the rook, and black's gonna lose one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could, I would just move my rook and then move my bishop. But you can't make 2 moves in a row, so I can't save both the bishop or the rook. But the traditional fork is it's almost always in the center of the board where it's a pawn that's attacking the bishop and the knight.
When you traded your knight here, did you already see this?
Well, this is not my game. This is a game from 1857. But yes, the players did see this in the game. Yes.
I just mean like prior to today, I would have a hard time, imagining this before trading my knight.
Yeah, I mean this concept. I don't think you're like taking a pawn to fork the knight and the bishop here in the center. I wouldn't even really think about it that way. I would say though. Let me give you another example. I'm just again disregard these opening moves, but I'm just gonna make some moves, okay? So I'm just gonna make some moves because this is a more traditional one. So I'm gonna go here. So try to make a fork in the center of the board with the white pieces. You're playing white here.
The first thing I see is this to attack this and this, but your pawn is protecting.
Right now, remember when I said when I said fork? Think of forks. It happens like 95% is going to be with a pawn. Right.
Oh, so this.
Right. And so now what happened? Okay, so first of all, let's do the material count. So I'm attacking this pawn or threatening to capture it with 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
And you're defending it with 1, 2, 3.
1. Yep.
So normally when it's even, that means it's defended when you make this move. As long as it's 3 and 3, which means if your opponent tries to capture, black has to capture first. So if you have 3 and they have 3, they capture first. 3 becomes 2, 2 becomes 2, and then white wins the trade at the end. So now I'm gonna move the bishop back. Okay, but remember I wanted you to show me how to make a fork here.
Another one?
So how do you make a fork? Yeah, actually, you know what? You're right. Pawn takes pawn. This is a fork. You're right. Actually, I didn't realize this is a fork. You're attacking 2 things at the same time. So you actually this is like partially correct. But when you take this pawn, I just take back, and it's 1 pawn for 1 pawn.
Yeah, so it's not really a fork.
Normally, when you make a fork, you're gonna end up ahead.
I'm trying to think of ways to fork, but that is not defended, because it just seems like so much is defended here.
Correct. So let's go back. Good. You found it.
Okay. Sorry, I was so tunneled on this knight. Because so often when I think of forks, I've seen them so much in puzzles with knights, typically, not so much with pawns. Actually,
that's a good point. Yeah. So you're right. Actually, they do occur a lot with knights. That's a good point. Yeah, you're right. Actually, you're finding the kind of like you have the exact response that I'm not kind of expecting. Like you have the right answer, but it's like something that I wasn't like thinking about. You're absolutely right.
What was the other answer?
So like for me, because like when I think of forks, I normally think of it being with the pawn. But you're actually right that when you do puzzles, the majority of the puzzles, it's gonna be with the knight and not with the pawn. Yeah. So that's just the fact that I'm thinking about it like different way.
Like, they probably put it in puzzles because I think the pawn ones are more obvious. But now because I've only done puzzles, they're not that obvious to me.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so you're right. Like when I say fork, I'm thinking of something very specific, but you're absolutely right too that it like you're thinking of knight forks, and normally when you see them in actual like play or in puzzles, it's going to be with a knight. It's not going to be with a pawn. So you're absolutely right in the way that you look at this.
Okay.
So like this is like the standard one where basically it's like you just get a pawn, and you see right now both players have 2 bishops and 2 knights on the board. So this is like the very standard fork. Whereas the one that happens in this game, it's much different because it's only going for an even trade here because you gave away a knight to get the fork, so it's just an even trade versus like winning, say, the bishop or winning a knight, and not giving away anything.
I see. I think that was the other thing, that it was like you're essentially looking for a fork from a disadvantage, which just makes it neutral.
Right. So okay, so this game kind of, black moves this rook. Black doesn't actually take. So currently black's behind by 1 pawn in the center. So black should be behind here, right? Because it's white's ahead by 1 in material. Actually, you know what? I think you should actually flip the board for the rest of this game. Just look at it from the black perspective.
Is there a button to flip the board?
Yeah, so you see the cogwheel. It should be to the right, like it should be to the right of the name, kind of. There's a cogwheel, and there's like 2 arrows for flip board.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
So you're up.
White's up by 1 here. Currently.
Yeah.
Because white has 8 pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Black is 7.
I mean, this is an advantageous trade for me.
If it's your move. However, white just traded the knights here, and black took back this way. So what was the reason for taking with this pawn? Again?
This diagonal.
Exactly.
Well, maybe not to here, but you're opening up this diagonal for your bishop.
No, you're actually right. Like moving the bishop here is a good idea.
Oh, because you're protected. That's true.
So again, now remember what I said before? I'm just gonna make a random move here. How do you use the queen and the knight to make a checkmate?
I think you first have to like force.
Now remember before I told you the squares that the 2 pawns that you want to attack with the knight and how you want to make a checkmate. Now it was with the colors reversed, so it might be a little bit harder to see, but do you remember where the knight and the queen were going earlier? Make a checkmate?
I do remember. I believe the knight was here or.
So what I'm gonna say, and I've said this to a few other people, but like, trust your instinct or your first thought, like what you think it is. Like you have the right idea. So where should you put the knight?
So I want to put him here, but I don't. That's not. Oh wait, I guess that's fine because it's defended.
So yeah, you want to be aware that when you like move a knight like down here, that it's not going to be captured for free by like a queen. But yeah, this is correct. So let's just say I play a random move. What's your next move?
I would like to. I'm either. Oh wait. Okay. I bring my queen out, and then I have checkmate in 2 if there isn't anything you can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like what I'm saying.
I was like trying to think through. Okay. Well, I guess if you saw this, maybe you would take, but then I take, and either way, that's good for me.
So sort of when I like give you these sorts of test type of questions. Normally it's like it's not so that you calculate, it's so that you see this, you see a pattern. So it's like once you see this pattern, so like what I would say is like you're very new, so probably it won't come right away, but like if you were to see this today and like tomorrow you were to see these ideas of these checkmates, it'd be one of these things where it's like, you know, if I asked you like 3 days from now, it's like, how do you make checkmates with the queen and the knight? You're gonna be like, well, it's gonna be on like these 2 squares, or if you're white, it's these 2 squares. And so it's like, it's that sort of, it starts clicking and you start seeing that right away. And then when you're in the game, you'll start seeing these ideas of making the checkmate because you've seen the repetition of seeing these patterns.
Actually, this is especially helpful because typically when I see someone castle, it is like partially demoralizing because it feels so difficult to break through that. But seeing ways of doing it like this makes it a lot easier to visualize.
Right. Well, that's good. That's very good. That's what you want is sort of, because like I think you said this before. I think when you were doing puzzles the other day, like I think we're saying you want to be like defensive. I actually have the opposite. I kind of have like the opposite attitude, which is that since you're so like, you don't have a background in chess, right? Sorry, background's wrong. I mean, did you like play when you were younger, or is this like literally you're starting from scratch?
I played maybe a little bit in like elementary school, but to like try to explain how little I knew, I only learned about castling within the last like week. Okay, once I started getting into chess.
Right. So the point that I was
definitely just like learning what the pieces do.
So the point that I was going to make is that because there have been several of these PogChamps events, and you sort of see certain people like they can pick things up easier than others, or like they just have a natural knack for like the puzzles. And so, for example, when you were doing the puzzles, I think it was the back rank checkmates. I think it was probably like 4 or 5 days ago. Like that is not something that for someone who is really new to the game they should be spotting. They should not really be seeing the. Yes, really. They should not be spotting these sorts of things. Like it's not kind of natural for someone who hasn't like played or hasn't like seen these patterns before.
Feels good, man.
it should, because it's not normal. So it totally should.
When being not normal is good. Nice.
Well, it's just, I mean, okay, the simpler way is just being naturally gifted, or like your mind can put it together more easily.
I feel like probably my biggest advantage or strength when it will come to chess is just being able to memorize things. So I feel like when I see, for example, back rank checkmate, that I'll be able to spot pretty easily later on.
Right. Like I said, you're assuming everyone can do this, but that's not the case. I thought it was simple. Yeah, no, I just mean that it's not the case.
Thank you.
So I'm just saying, like, you have a natural talent for that, which is why I actually think when you start looking at openings, you should not be playing more defensively. You should actually be trying to play very aggressively and very tactically. Okay.
I think I will have the confidence to do so when I like learn more sequences, like how to checkmate with a knight and queen, and then maybe I'll be able to see them. Yeah. Exactly.
So now to give you an idea of how much the game has changed, this game, which was played like 150 years ago, these were like the best players of their time, literally the best players in the world at the time. And this move that I said, this knight move, is still the best move here. But the players back then, they didn't actually, they didn't have the same understanding of the game.
Caveman brain.
Right.
Now we are sophisticated 2021 brain.
It's funny that you say that. A lot of people who they would be very upset because this player, the American player who had the black piece in this game, is considered one of the best players of all time. So when you say that,
it's a joke. No offense to the genius brains of past chess.
Right, exactly.
but a meme.
Right. So okay. So anyway, the moves don't really matter that much, but you'll see when you get to this position. Look at the development. So black has these pawns here, which aren't always great because they're double. You have
what is that called again?
Stacked is fine. If you're being like really proper, it's called double pawns. But stacked pawns, I mean, if that's easier for remembering, then you should use that. Okay. So now, in this position, if you look at the bishop, this bishop is very good towards where the white king is. Because it's keeping an eye on this pawn in front of the king. And now another thing is, I'm sure you haven't heard this term, but what a rook lift is.
A rook lift?
Right. So let me just put the rook. Let me go. Just
let me
make some random moves. Okay.
Rook bros from Leslie. So now when you're saying rook lift, I just imagine two bros lifting together.
Okay. So what rook bros, I think, is when the rooks are one on top of the other. No, that's fine. But actually, I'll show you that first. So what that means is we would call it doubling the rooks. So that would be like, for example, getting the rooks like this.
I thought that was also like a battery, or is that 3 things?
Battery is different. So, well, it's basically when you get 2, like when you get 2 rooks on the same file like this, it's called doubling. You say like doubling the rooks. Or, for example, if you get like 3 things, like 2 rooks and a queen in any sort of order, that's generally called like tripling.
Wowie. What is a battery then?
So battery is, it's when you line up a checkmate. So for example, this is where like, now you know like when you're trying to make a checkmate with a knight and a queen, almost always it's going to occur like on these 2 squares next to the king.
Yeah.
So a battery is when you do something like this. And you create a checkmate threat with a queen and a bishop.
Got it. Oh, I didn't know that was called a battery also. Got it.
So now, actually, to use this as further example of battery, can you find a way, I'm just going to make a move, to line up another battery as black? Actually, I have to use the restroom. I'll be right back.
Go ahead, okay? I'll just be braining over here. Okay, we're trying to line up checkmate. I feel like, to checkmate here, I want to get my queen. Okay. My queen somewhere around here, but then I would also need to move my bishop, but I would also need to do like 3 moves, which is quite a bit. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else. I can't attack here because it's defended. Is there anything else that I can use? I think that's really the only way. Move this. Wait, no, not there. This. And then he could block, but I take. And then I just push here. Oh, sorry. I did the wrong arrow. Like this. If he takes, I take. And then either way, I just push through. Oh my god, you're back. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, so I think I do that.
Right, and if I go like just a random move?
Okay, you definitely don't want to be doing that, because then I can even go here.
Right idea, wrong square. Right idea, wrong square. So what's the right square?
Before I did this, but I was only considering it was here. Yeah, I go here.
Well, again, like the reason I'm saying this is not like the specific calculation, is so that you get this idea of what the battery is.
It's almost like arrows on top of each other.
Exactly, yeah. So let's just say I make a random move. What's your next move?
Oh.
Right, and that's checkmate.
Yeah.
You can also go to this square as well. Both squares are checkmate. So now I'm going to take this back a step. So you remember how earlier one thing I said was that most of the time you want these 3 pawns like this.
Yep.
Now, just it doesn't matter where the queen and the bishop are, but I said you normally want pawns like this. And one of the big reasons is because if you put your pawns like this formation, you're very vulnerable to these sorts of checkmate ideas.
To a queen attack, yeah. Whereas otherwise, you kind of give your king an escape airlock or something.
Now, this is why also now I'm going to go back to the very start just to show something kind of. This is why you can also, when you start the game, you can say push a pawn. I'm just going to make some moves. It doesn't really matter. And if you have... One second, just moves don't really matter again. But
I just want to have that in the back of my mind during the tournament. All these moves don't really matter. It doesn't really matter what's going on.
Well, like, I'm trying to show a concept. So, like, if you look at... So now, look at the position. You see how the pawns... I have this formation of these 3 pawns? You see how there's this bishop here? So this is what it's called, like a...
Is that good or bad? Because to me, it kind of looks bad.
So it's actually quite decent. But the point that I'm trying to make is that if you have this formation of these 3 pawns, you really need to have, like, this bishop here. Because it's very hard to attack. Like, you see, I can't... Whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Like, I can't really create any sort of threats. Your king is very safe here with the bishop here.
Sorry, the reason I was saying that was, like, if I were in a situation where, like, I could... I don't know what to do. Okay, hold on. if I could somehow get my queen out on this diagonal, then I could still do checkmate by just taking.
If you could, yes. But it's a lot harder. So like this is why if when just as sort of like the basics of like the game, like if your opponent creates this structure with the 3 pawns, you almost always want to have a bishop here. Because otherwise, without this bishop here, you know, for example, I don't know, let me just make some moves.
Very vulnerable.
Right. So actually, can you create another battery to make a checkmate? Okay, but how are you making a checkmate here? I'm just gonna make a random move.
Oh, it has to be the other way around.
Right. So can you make a battery?
I'm trying to see if there's another one, but I'm thinking queen here. The only thing you can do is maybe this, but I just... Oh wait, you do have.
So actually, again, tunnel on the notion of making the battery to create a checkmate. Yeah, exactly. All you need is confidence. Okay. No, I mean you're completely right. Like when I'm trying to show the concept, it's not about doing like a calculation of if I do this move, they do this move. It's specifically like the theme of what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just you want to put the queen here and create the checkmate. Perfect.
Nice.
All right. So, back to this game. Okay. So now, back to this concept of a rook lift. What a rook lift is for example, let me put the pieces on just the normal developing squares. A rook lift is when you try to bring a rook out and you try to bring a rook over to create checkmate threats towards where your opponent's king is. So for example, you move the rook here. I'm just going to make some normal moves. And now, how would you try to put pressure on this pawn? So this is a pin, right? The pawn can't move, or else the king would be in check.
In check. Yep.
Right. So how would you try to put pressure on this pawn in front of the king? Very good. And you create this checkmate pattern. Very, very good. What's another way to put pressure on this pawn?
If I could get, but that's too.
No, that's actually that's great. That's actually very, very good. Is there a way you can maybe use the bishop and the rook to attack this pawn in less than 2 moves? Of course.
Oh.
So I can't take the bishop because then I would lose my king.
Yeah.
And what happens when I push my pawn?
Bad things, I am sure.
So there are two
which bad things.
2 solutions here. Both are good, but I want to see if you can come with. Let's see if you can come with both the solutions. Very good. So if you move the queen here and I move my pawn, what's your next move?
Bot checkmate.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay, and now.
Otherwise. Right now I'm seeing like a trade like this.
Okay, so first things first.
I could also just kick, but I don't think that's good either.
Well, in this case it is good. You can give up because a rook is more powerful than a bishop. But you actually
it's a good trade, but it's not like getting to checkmate.
Yeah, so you're in a way proving my point, which is that like you actually don't want to you don't want to give up the bishop for the rook because you want to go for a checkmate.
Yes, exactly.
Which is good.
So
now,
so
you wanted to take the pawn, but I recaptured. So now I'm going to set something else.
Yeah.
Okay, find a checkmate here. Remember how you want to use the queen and the bishop to create a checkmate? You can obviously move your queen up to create this checkmate. I want to see if you can find there's a forced checkmate here in like 4 moves.
4. Okay, it's good to know that it's not in 1 because that's what I'm looking
it's
at.
3 technically, but anyway, yeah.
Okay. So right now I'm exploring this bishop right here, my good friend. If I take here, I'm forcing
Right.
your king out. Don't know if that's good or not. I'm trying to see if any sort of trade here is worthwhile for me, but I don't think so because it's defended by 2.
You sure?
Actually, this one's pinned.
Mm-hmm.
So if I take, you take, I have check. And then your options are to move here.
Mm-hmm.
Or to move here. If you move there, I can do this, and I have check again. It's just I don't know how I can cover both squares at once.
So you have the right idea.
Yeah. I think in a situation like this, I feel like I haven't developed my chess foresight.
So this
Sometimes
is
in puzzles, I just say, F it, this looks like a moderately good option, and I just work through it. But
So remember, one thing that's important is when you're trying to create checkmates, generally speaking, it's much easier with a queen and like a bishop versus like a rook and a bishop.
yes. Which was what I just thought of, that like if I'm gonna throw one of my pieces into the line of fire, I probably don't want it to be my queen first. So if I did this, you that one's pinned, you take, and then I think I create check, and then I create checkmate.
Of course, exactly, obviously. No, that's 100% correct. So when I take, yeah,
obviously. Yay! Okay. Yeah, this was something I didn't see right away without your help.
Right, but I mean, but kind of the point is like, and again, like most people would not see this. Like most people in my chat don't understand how you saw that because it's not like.
No, your chat is definitely Pago. Just do this.
No, I'm actually being serious though. I'm just saying like it's not obvious. Like it's. I don't really know how to put it in this kind of way. I think it's very fascinating to see how everyone approaches it, but it's not obvious at all. Like giving up a rook and seeing the pin. No, I mean this is not obvious at all, which is why like now you're making me think about openings and like what you should play in the event, because this is why I'm saying like you're seeing the aggressive ideas to like go for checkmates. Like for someone who hasn't played, like this is not. I mean, you should not be seeing this, basically, and you are. So it's very, very promising.
Thanks! That is really, really motivating. Because sometimes, you know, when I'm just, like, doing puzzles, and I know there's so many people in chat that are like, it's just this. It feels like I'm, like, lagging behind. But as long as it feels like I'm progressing at a good pace, I'm really happy about it.
This is very, very good so far.
Just like when you play League and everybody in your chat is Challenger, of course, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, chess is even worse, I think, than League in that regard. Like, everyone knows what's right. Yeah.
I mean, then you're lucky to be so good. You can't really backseat someone that is like...
Right, that's...
0.0000001%.
That's exactly why, yeah. That's why it works for me. It's like, no one can... People try, but it almost always doesn't work out.
They'll just Pago you about something.
Right, exactly, yeah. Usually it's like that, and then I say something, it's like, oh yeah, really? Pago? Really? So, yeah, anyway, okay. So like, when we look at this game now, so White hasn't developed the bishop and the rook, right?
Nah, White sucks. Just kidding, that's you, I didn't mean it.
No, that's fine. So like, here, why does White play this pawn push? What's the idea behind pushing this pawn?
You are, I guess, opening up a diagonal for your queen, but not a very long one. I mean, it's decent.
And another idea?
You could push this afterwards and have it be defended, and you'd be attacking my bishop. Right,
so it's sort of like it's like threefold. When you push the pawn, first of all, you want to create these this pawn chain in the center of the board, these 3 pawns in a row. Secondly, you attack the bishop. Secondly, you attack the bishop when you put the pawn here, but let's just say I make a random move. Third, when you move the bishop, you see how now the bishop, there's no threat on this diagonal anymore. This pawn is in the way.
Triple efficiency.
So like, I've actually closed this diagonal for your bishop. And then kind of like the last part is that I open this diagonal for my bishop, so that I can then bring my rook into somewhere in the center of the board.
So I feel like it is almost always advantageous to, like, in a sense, open up your pawns towards the center.
Yeah.
You know, whatever, and then like that. Yeah. Sorry.
Right, but like I said, when I said the center, normally that only applies to these two files in the middle of the board. Like, you don't want to. This isn't really considered the center anymore. Sometimes you can say like,
because
these two are the center, but most of the time when you say center, it's like it's normally like these files and these 4 squares, basically.
Okay.
So so now how would you stop white from pushing this pawn forward? Because think about it, if this
creating another threat here. Pause chat.
So it's not a threat, but right, but I can still push the pawn because it's supported by the pawn.
True. Maybe you could just put a piece there and say F you. Well, no, that's also not bad because then you just take. You could also create pressure elsewhere.
You have the right idea with what you just said, but there's a better, without giving up something, without giving away a bishop or a queen or something.
It just sucks because my doubled up pawns.
So how do you stop me from pushing this pawn 2 squares in the center here?
Okay, I feel like either you create more threat here or you pin this pawn here, but you said it's create threat.
Okay, so now I'm gonna give you another term here. So the correct move is to move the queen here. And so now, if you look at this pawn here, this pawn is called a backwards pawn. Because when you look at this, normally let me just put the pawn like here, for example. This pawn cannot move forward, and so it's sort of stuck here. And if you can't push this pawn, you can't really push your pawns. You can't use these pawns and push them further up the board and take more space.
Is it worth it to utilize your queen that way?
Normally, I mean, it's not... It doesn't happen most of the time, because normally, like, if this was a modern day game, the player would push this pawn immediately. And they would just open up the diagonal like this, and there's nothing you really could do about it. Like,
you wouldn't usually be in this state of the board.
Right, because over time, like, if you're trying to create these chains of pawns in the center of the board, like, for example, let's say this queen is here, or actually, let me just make a random move. Like, say my queen was here, I can't ever stop this, and then it's very, very good. But with the queen being on this square, trying to create this pawn chain and take all the space in the center, it doesn't work, because you can put your queen here, and you see the problem here is, how can white dislodge this queen from the square? Is there some way to attack it?
Not immediately. He would have to either move his bishop or his queen.
And if the bishop moves here, what would your next move be?
My reflex is to, like, also defend this position, but I'm trying to see if there is just a queen take that is better. Well, actually, he's in a sense defending here, so if I took, he takes, I take.
And you're ahead.
Yeah.
So I can't actually move the bishop here because you just take. What I would like to do is I actually, like, I want to move the bishop, so if your queen moves, I can just take the space in the center of the board. But I can't remove this queen from the center square. So I'm going to play the pawn here. So think about this bishop in terms of diagonals. Which diagonal do you want this bishop on? Like, this bishop is really good here, right?
I think you want him attacking this pawn.
So where would you move the bishop? Yeah, of course. It's the correct move.
Nice.
So now I'm going to play pawn here. And this is something you need to be careful of, by the way. When you put a bishop on a diagonal, you need to be aware of where the pawns are. So if you were to move the bishop, just for example, to develop this bishop, you probably haven't seen this, but white can push this pawn here. And do you see what the problem is?
He's just all up in my face, and also my bishop is being attacked.
Right.
And I have nowhere to go because it's being attacked all along this diagonal.
Exactly. So you have to be aware of these ideas when you
Oh.
put a bishop on a long diagonal to be careful that your opponent doesn't get like a couple of pawns covering all these squares on the diagonal.
That's tough because I stopped the pawn chain moving towards the center, but created one moving towards my bishop.
Right. So actually, like, white's trying to attack on the edge of the board with these pawns, the very edge of the board. So in this situation, you want to keep the bishop here. You don't want the pawns attacking the bishop because, like, right now, if you think about it, white can't really do anything about this very nice bishop that's on this diagonal towards the white king.
So I think from this position or after this, because now that I see that you would just keep pushing, I feel like I would just take this and maybe later on bring my bishop out.
Not bad, not bad. So in this case, if white does take with the rook, you can actually put the bishop here.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at this diagonal, white has no pawns in the way of this bishop. When you look at all these light squares, like, you just have the queen and the bishop, and this is actually a battery, by the way. It's not a checkmate battery, but it's a battery. But now, for example, let me change the pawns. Let's say
that's a good trade battery because it's rook, bishop, queen, queen.
So let's say I just change the pawns a little bit.
Okay.
This is actually not good now, because you see these pawns are in the way. So your queen and bishop are not defending each other. They're out of sync.
They're separated.
Right. And also this bishop, there's these pawns, like, the bishop can't get down to where this rook is anymore. Like, you could always take, but you just lose the bishop for a pawn. So these pawns they prevent this bishop from being in the game here on this diagonal. So, like, in this case, though, if you were able to play, actually, let me play rook a4. If you get this position, it's a very open diagonal. I can't put the pawns in the way on any of these light squares. So it's just your queen and your bishop are really, really strong here. So okay,
As white, do you just like try to break that up or something, even if it's I guess that doesn't work, but
well, you have to be careful in this specific situation. It doesn't work because, let me just make a random move, because you can take with the pawn. And even though the rook is under attack, by the way, be aware of these long diagonals. The queen is currently under attack. So, for example, if let me just make a couple moves. Like, in something like this position, this is very strong because the pawn is pinned. If I capture the pawn, I lose the rook. And so this is very strong for white with this bishop on the diagonal. So yes, white would want to try to do that.
I feel like pins are going to be so OP in the tournament.
Well, pins will happen in, like, the majority of your game. Some version of a pin, especially with the bishop, it will happen. Yeah, it's going to happen, like, all the time.
Because I feel like they're kind of the easiest thing to overlook.
Yeah,
like
I think
someone who's not really advanced, you know?
Yeah, I think it's easy because it's from long distance. Like, you have to be aware of what the bishops are doing from very far away. It's very easy to, like, focus on a couple of squares.
Yeah, you called the bishop a sniper. I like that.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way to think about them, because it's just like they attack from really far away. It's very easy to forget that they're even there. So okay, so in this situation, you can't really bring the bishop out, because what happens if you move the bishop here?
He is kind of stuck.
Well, you're actually attacking this rook. If it's your move, like if white just makes a random move, this is actually checkmate. But does white have a better move?
You just take.
Right, and when you take? Right, and now you've lost a queen and a bishop, and in return you only got one queen. So you just lost a ton of pieces here.
That's not worth.
So okay, so in this position you have a great queen, right? It's on a very good square. It's keeping an eye on the rook and an eye on the bishop. Your rook here is also pretty good, and your bishop here is fantastic. This isn't an outpost, but it can't really be dislodged. Like, there are no pawns that are close enough to sort of attack it on these two squares that are closest to it. So this bishop is amazing, this queen is amazing, and this rook is amazing. So which pieces are not amazing here?
Maybe even this guy.
Yeah.
Not doing too much.
So remember, rooks want to be on open files.
Yep. Maybe do this.
It's not a bad move. But the correct move is
kind of block.
right. So correct move is actually move the bishop here. So first of all, this guards this pawn because right now white is threatening to capture it. You have 1-2 attacking, and you only have 1 defending.
True.
But after this move, how do you finish your development, getting the last piece into the game?
I could double up my broskies, or I could do this. I don't know if that's
right. So
that
generally, when you have the what'd you call them? I forgot what you called them.
No, it was Leslie. I was watching your lesson with her, and she called the rooks bros or something.
Okay, so yeah, like when you have like the bros like this, they're really strong. When they're on a completely open
the brokies.
when they're on a completely like open line, they're really strong normally, like really strong. So now I'm just gonna play a random move here. I want to see if you can follow another theme and find a checkmate here.
I feel like it's something along the lines of this. Only option is this. Into this. Into this.
So yeah, you're looking for a back rank checkmate.
Or can I just do that? No, I can't do that. Yeah, so I think it's this. Oh, you know what? Let me just do it, and if it's wrong, then it's wrong.
Okay. So the problem with moving the rook down is that I capture your queen.
In case. Oh, true.
You had it. You sort of started like hesitating and double and second guessing yourself. Right. And what happens when I take?
This, and you can't take.
Right. And this is actually, it's just a back rank checkmate. The king can't go anywhere. So you had it. That's what I'm saying. It's like you have the right idea, like the intuition, like what you're thinking is correct. You just have to like be a little bit more confident.
Yeah, sometimes I just tunnel too much on one specific like quadrant of the board, so I didn't see that like your queen was attacking. And legit, the way I counter that sometimes is I just make the chessboard smaller.
Okay, no, that's fine. I mean, whatever works. Yeah.
It looks really funny on stream.
So like here, what happens if you capture? Why doesn't this work here?
Sorry, one sec.
Sure, no problem.
If I capture here, why doesn't it work?
Why isn't it a forced checkmate?
Well, here, because I don't have anything backing my queen.
Well, remember what the check. So if I take with the king.
But after, after you take, then I take.
Right. Or wait, sorry, that's not what I meant to do. Okay, so after you capture, what can white play here? Right. And so you can actually still go down, and you'll win the queen because the queen can't move because it's pinned. But this isn't what you want to do.
But that's not.
So there's actually, I mean, you would never like there's a crazy move here that was played in the game. So black takes this bishop. So this looks insane, right? You're giving up the queen for one bishop.
Yep, but I assume it's because there's then a way to checkmate.
I want to see if we can find the next two. I want to see if we can find it. Yeah. So what do you think the moves are? Okay. Yeah, you can play the moves.
Okay, but this is me still braining it out. So what I was thinking is check, and then you move here, and then... Well, I don't think this works, because then you just take, and I don't retake. So it must be something else.
So do you remember what I said about these three pawns before?
Yeah, it's not nice to have them like this.
Right. So how do you try to make a checkmate here?
I don't know if it's via this. And also we have this bishop. Do you mean from this position?
Yes.
Or a position?
I mean, this was the game. Yeah, this is the correct move.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different because this is a rook, it's not a queen, so you don't have this idea with the checkmate on the square.
Ah, I see.
So white moves the rook over here, and now this is very difficult. But first of all, you want to go bishop
like you
here.
Try to make like one move of space. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, one move of space for who? For black or for white?
Basically what I'm saying is like, if you had one extra move where the rook isn't taking something, then you get checkmate.
Okay, so
go ahead, explain.
So first things first. Let's say I move my rook here. I want to see if we can find a checkmate. Right, if you move there, I can recapture.
It's not in one move, is it?
It's two moves.
That's okay.
Like it's technically three, but two moves basically.
Two moves on my end.
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like it's one of two options. Either I'm baiting the rook away like this, or I'm taking this piece to kind of create more pressure here. So let's see. We'll go one option at a time. Or maybe even I go here. Okay, one option at a time. If I were to take this...
Now, one thing that I would say is, remember, in this position, your opponent has an extra queen for one bishop. So time is really, really important here. Like, you can't just make moves that don't count, because otherwise your opponent having an extra queen for one bishop will be able to defend the weak king position here.
So are you telling me to think faster and just do it?
So sort of like, what are the checks? Like one thing is, you want to be always looking for checks when you're trying to attack your opponent.
Okay. So it's most likely a check into an extra move, not a setup move into a checkmate. In which case it would be this.
Okay,
and
so I'll show you the first move. The first move is to trade the rooks.
I've blocked this off. I think.
So what's the move? Right. And I mean, technically white can move the queen back, but what's your next move?
Is it this bishop? Hold on, let me brain it through.
So think about all of your pieces.
Okay, if I take this, I no longer have checkmate or check at all.
So
or
what are
I can? Oh, it's also blocking. Okay, I'm defended here.
Right.
Sorry, I was thinking the king takes back. Yeah.
Right. So this is just a forced checkmate. So this is like when I talk about.
That's a pattern I have not seen before. Like.
Yeah, so the pattern, if you've done puzzles that you've probably seen, is I'm just gonna. Well, actually, no. I have a puzzle after this anyway. It was very similar theme. So, but yeah, normally when you see the checkmate, the one that you're gonna see more commonly than this one is something like let me see. How can I set this up? The more common theme you're gonna see is something. Wait, actually, sorry. Let's just checkmate 1 second. It's something like. Let me just make a couple of random moves. Is something like this checkmate, where the bishop is covering these sorts of squares, like where you see the bishop on this side.
I haven't even seen this before.
You did a checkmate. You did a puzzle. You did a puzzle. It was slightly different, but yes, there was a puzzle you did. I think it was 5 days ago. Something like let me.
I don't remember if they were like there was no other pieces.
Well, I mean, I can show you the basic setup of what the puzzle was.
You just memorized it?
Yeah, it was something like where you got the rook with the check down here, and you had a bishop. I think the bishop was technically on this square, not on this square, and then it was this checkmate. So it's a little bit. It's like slightly
this
further
one for
back.
me is a bit easier to see, actually. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean this is much more common. Like the checkmate, like this sort of checkmate, like as I just make this one. This is much more common. Whether it's the bishop here or the bishop here, where you have the rook. Yeah, this checkmate is much more common than the one than the other one that occurs in this situation. Because this is very different. This one does not occur often. There is a kind of a similar one where it's not a bishop, where you get something like let me just make some random moves. There is a checkmate that can occur like this, which is actually much more common, where you get a pawn.
Because it kind of serves similarly.
Right.
But you can't do the exact... Oh, well, your queen is covered. So
right, exactly. There's no way to move the queen back. Exactly.
Got it. Actually, can I go to the bathroom
Sure.
real quick?
Yeah, no problem.
Feel free to talk to my chat if you'd like.
Yeah. Yeah, so those of you guys who are watching this, I mean, like, what I'm saying, I think it's like... I mean, I guess it's hard to rationalize this if you're so new to the game, so you assume everyone sees all these sorts of tactics through these puzzles. But what I would say is that, like, I think certain people are more naturally sort of gifted. They see these sorts of these sorts of patterns. Like even if the order is slightly wrong, or she's overthinking it, like the general notion of seeing what the idea is there. So I think a lot of it is about is like just having more confidence. Of course, if you're so new to the game, it's not. I mean, it's not going to be easy, because of course, like, well, I'm new to the game. Obviously, I'm like, it can't be that good. But what I would also say is, the more I think about this, the more that I think, stop being so weird. Stop saying plug this, plug that, please give me a break. But what I would say is that I think she should definitely be playing Give Us Ads. Give Us Ads, good one. Yeah, okay, you want ads? They're your ads, you guys. There, I just gave you some ads. Are you happy now? Anyway, as I was saying, Bishop G2 was a checkmate as well, you guys. But what I was gonna say is that, like, I think she should be playing much more aggressive openings. I haven't really thought about this in depth yet. But I certainly hope to help her more with the event going forward. I mean, it's still like 6 weeks away, but based on the way that she's visualizing or what she's seeing in terms of the patterns, I think she should definitely play much more aggressively. I think she should play very aggressively. So I think that's good. I can hear everything on her channel so funny. Yeah, I mean, it's all good. But anyway, yeah, so this is very, very good so far. Very, very good. In 6 weeks, yeah, it's gonna be like February, last 2 weeks of February, you guys. Last 2 weeks of February. So like even like I don't expect her to go like full Hafumu, but even if she just does a little bit here and there, I think certainly she's gonna get really good really quickly. Aggressive, I mean, you play like openings where like you play gambits, kind of like Forsen style, except better than Forsen. I mean, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that. But something like that. Anyway, yeah, like playing gambits that are like legitimately good. So let's put it that way. Anyway, but see, you know what I would also say, you guys, is like what I'm showing Pokey. I think like if XQC had done some of these sorts of things, like he could have had the improvement he's had much quicker. But because of the way he's approached it, it's like games over and over. It starts to click at some point, but like the process, it takes a lot longer, I think. I said there are 4 players in PogChamps: Pokimane, Ludwig, Moist Critical, and Logic the Rapper. So yeah. But yeah, this is very good, very, very good. And I think when you see the concepts over and over, like it's like it starts to stick. So like I'm also gonna give her a similar pattern with this bishop and rook checkmate, because I actually inadvertently I have a puzzle that I put in my database as well. So I want to see if she can like find a solution.
Find a solution to what?
To another puzzle very similar to this game. Okay, so in this position, white moves the rook here. So this move is not the correct move, although I think it actually it almost works as well. But let's just say white pushes the pawn. What would your next move be here? How do you try to make a checkmate?
I'm looking at this. But let me see why that perhaps does not work.
So I was gonna say something. I feel like normally when I ask a question, you assume it's a trick question.
Maybe that's my puzzle reflex, because sometimes they give you really bait ones. But yeah, I think this.
Yeah, exactly. So like when I like ask this, it's like it's complete information. So it's like if there's a solution, it's just there. It really shouldn't matter like whether I ask it, who asked the question. It's like there should be a solution. There always should be a solution.
So I think just saying like what first comes to mind and then trying to just... The reason I say it like that is because I'm still playing it out to see if it doesn't actually work out.
Well, I mean, I could say that's actually true across the board because like even when you have professional competitions, almost always the first instinct or the first thought is generally correct. And
go with your gut.
Exactly, yeah. So like that I think applies across the board when it comes to chess. It's like generally the first thought is it's going to be right, especially if you have a natural like predisposition towards like, you know, seeing these patterns. Like the first instinct is going to be right most of the time, I would say.
5 heads.
So this bishop move is good, but this is also actually a good move. So I'm just gonna play a couple more moves. And so now, actually, I guess it doesn't really matter because this game ends the same way. It ends with this idea again, creating the checkmate.
Yeah.
And
I really love having 2 bishops beside each other.
Yeah, bishops.
You just like block so much. It's amazing.
Right. So this is also why bishops are. I mean, a lot of people say they're better than knights, but that it only really applies when you're attacking or when there's very limited pieces on the board.
Because then they just take up so much space.
Well, it's like, for example, think about this bishop. Like, it covers all these squares on the diagonal.
Yeah.
White can't really... For example, what white would really love to do is have this rook attacking this pawn here and on an open file. But the bishop here basically prevents that for the whole game.
Yeah. Actually, when I first started playing, like a week ago, that was one of the things that kind of bothered me, that bishops and knights are both 3 points when it kind of feels like bishops should be much more. But then I guess it's just like the early advantage that knights have, being able to jump over pieces is it kind of evens it out.
Yeah, so again, every situation is different, but in general, bishops are slightly better than knights as the game progresses, but early on knights are much better than the bishops.